Welcome to the next speaker and interview in this Fall 2022 speaker series put on by James Madison University School of Professional and Continuing Education. With this speaker series, we're actually launching a new program called the Leadership Education and Development Series. And the goal here is to build a free online learning community for professionals that are interested in learning about leadership. Leadership is something that you develop over a lifetime, and we really feel like there should be free and accessible ways to learn together. This speaker series is the first event that we're putting together under this umbrella, and the theme for this series is Thriving in the New Normal: What Leaders Should Know to Confidently Lead Innovation in Hybrid and Remote Teams and Organizations. This is obviously in the context of post-peak COVID, and many organizations had to shift from their normal ways of doing things into new ways of doing things. One big part of how that manifested was organizations and teams that used to be co-located all together in an office just by default had to change that. And some have seen advantages to be fully remote or hybrid or some combination. Our guest today is at the forefront of that on behalf of his organization, which is Red Roof Inn. And we are going to talk with him about that transition. He is Steve Woodward. He's the Vice President of Quality Training and Development for Red Roof. And I'll read a short bio and then give him a chance to say hello. As Red Roof's Vice President of Quality Training and Development, Steve Woodward is focused on developing and implementing programs and procedures that enable Red Roof team members, associates, and franchisees to raise the bar as it relates to brand standards and quality of service. A 30-year veteran of the hospitality industry, Steve joined Red Roof in 2015 to assist with training and staff development and was promoted to Vice President in 2021. So right in the throes of all this change. Drawing on his 17-year experience in the restaurant industry, where he was previously Senior Director of Organizational Behavior and Design/Talent Management for Steak and Shake, has been instrumental for Steve as he works to shape enhanced training and retention strategies required to succeed in today's landscape. Since joining Red Roof, Steve has also worked to improve the organization's internal communications framework and further align the company's various operational silos. I wonder if that's relevant to anybody listening or watching. As a strong relationship builder, Steve has continuously found new ways to improve training for current team members while laying the groundwork for future leaders at Red Roof. He holds a degree in business with a minor in English from High Point University. Steve, welcome. Is there anything else you'd like to say to introduce yourself or Red Roof?
I thank you. That was great. You covered everything out there. I have years of experience in the hospitality industry, so that has actually benefited me through all of COVID and the transition that we've had. So we're going to talk more about that today. So I'm looking forward to it.
Yeah, and if you stick with us, you'll have a chance to even get a discount to stay at a Red Roof. So stay tuned for that. If you haven't yet registered with your email address for the entire speaker series, be sure you do that at the link that's around this video somewhere, and you'll be able to get that bonus and all the other speakers that are part of this series. So, Steve, what are you going to focus on today?
Right. So what I'm going to focus on today is how we thrive within the remote environment. This isn't anything new. It's just different. And so we have to get our leaders up to speed that haven't dealt with a remote environment before. So I'm going to talk about those topics and what we're learning at Red Roof. So, we've been experimenting, with, over the past couple of years, like, how do we do this? I mean, in March of 2020, we all said, go home. And, we quickly had to learn teams and redesign how some of us work. And some departments, it was harder than others. So
and just to be clear, because when people hear Red Roof, they're thinking
hotels,
the locations where they can stay, the hotels. And Red Roof has, I saw on the website, 670, and they're not all only in the United States. So it's an international brand.
Correct.
And when you say go home, you weren't talking about the employees at the hotels
No, they had to
because they
stay.
stayed
Oh yeah,
open, right?
yeah,
So explain a little bit about the context that you're talking about.
yeah. So you know, and that's challenging. So from a corporate office standpoint, just like any other business, Red Roof has an accounting, an IT, procurement, all departments that every other organization would have, that was office based. So, we have those functions that, we shut down our office, but then we still had to support all of our hotel locations and continue to open hotels. And oh, by the way, you can't work remotely to clean a room. You can't work remotely to check somebody in, to fix a clogged toilet. Like, you have to be on site. So today's more about the corporate staff and how we're helping those leaders evolve for a remote workforce.
And a theme in the speaker series has absolutely been experimentation. So I want to highlight that and then pivot off that a little bit is, what do you mean experiment? Leaders are supposed to know what to do. We're supposed to know the right solution. We're supposed to tap into our decades of experience and just apply it to whatever we're facing today. Why isn't that how this works?
The world has changed, and as leaders, things are changing exponentially faster. And so, we have to be willing to be humble, and we have to be willing to say, wait a second, I'm going to try this. If it doesn't work, we're going to try something different. But we want to engage the teams and come up with the best solution and try it out. The days of leadership and supervisors and knowing every answer is gone. We have to be able to be comfortable to say, okay, let's try this. Let's see how it works. Think through it, hypothesize, try it out, learn and improve. Or sometimes we say, you know what, that was an epic fail. And, and that's okay. As long as we're upfront about it and we try something different.
So pre-COVID, your corporate office was all in person all the time, basically?
We had both. So we had departments that were corporate based. So in 2018, we moved into this beautiful office, basically brand new, and we were so excited about it. It's branded. We had, local officials coming in. It was something. So we had a large workforce in the office. We still had remote employees. We still have operations teams that are out visiting properties every day. We still had sales teams that are out there selling the brand, as well as sales teams that are out there selling to other companies to come stay with us. So we've had a remote workforce, but we also had a large corporate staff as well that worked in office.
Were you able to apply the lessons of being in touch with your franchisees and your remote workforce to this transition? Do you feel like that gave you an advantage in a sense, or was it not that much of an advantage when your corporate office of people that were co-located had to begin working from home?
That's exactly what we leaned into. We said, okay, we're already doing remote workforce. We've been doing it for years. In hospitality, I've been doing it for over, 20 some years. And so we know how to manage a remote workforce. Just some of our leaders don't know how to manage a workforce because they've always had their department work in the office. So we've had to work with those leaders to say, okay, what do we need to do differently? How do you need to empower your employees? How do you need to look at their work a little bit differently? How do they need to look at their work a little bit differently? And take the learnings and what we've done with our sales teams, with our operations teams, and start applying that to the leaders that had office-based positions that are remote. We did a lot of pairing up and mentoring as well. So, okay, you're vice president, you're a director of this department that's been office-based. Here, go talk to one of the field-based leaders. What do they do? And so that's been interesting, seeing the collaboration, which happened organically. I don't want to say, oh my gosh, 2 years ago we said, okay, here's the checklist, this is what we're doing. It kind of evolved that we were talking through, okay, here are best practices, we know what to do. And the leaders were saying, gosh, I need to know more about that. So we started just having those conversations in broader groups. And then it just organically, people started, building those relationships as one-offs and saying, oh gosh, that would really apply to my department. And this is how I need to rethink about how I am leading my team. One of the aha moments with many of our leaders who worked, who led office teams was not managing by the green light on Teams. It's not the 8:30 to 5:30. Like, I need to make sure their light is green and they are working the entire time. Because I used to be able to see them in the office. I knew what time they got to work. I knew what time they went home, and that's gone. Like, and to break that habit, and for many, that's decades of behavior that they've watched their employees come in and go, and now they have to trust that they're working. So they tried to manage it by that little green light that they're available, and it's like, no, like let's stop that methodology. It's not about the length of work or what time they clocked in. It's about the actual work that needs to get done.
This is interesting. I'm going to pull out a few themes here that I think are worth doing. One is you're making a distinction between the leaders, so kind of the C-suite, or that hierarchical leadership team,
Yep.
and you're making a specific distinction about some of them needing a new mindset or approach about how they manage, but maybe also how they do their work with each other.
Yeah.
And I think most of the time when this theme is talked about, we're not always talking about how it impacts that leadership team. It's more, how does that leadership team do the management of the employees? But what I'm getting at and would like to tease out a little bit is, how did the leadership team begin working differently as individuals, as they are home as well, presumably?
Mm-hmm.
And then, yeah, so maybe we can start there. A second piece that I just wanted to highlight is, it sounds like you're saying that teams within the organization may have had different strategies. And, that seems to be a theme really popping up here, is that there isn't a one size fits all, even within an organization and its teams, where different teams will have different norms or different things they need to be worrying about.
Yeah. So, with the leadership team, yes, they had to evaluate how they were leading. And we definitely, when we entered COVID, had different points of view. It became regulated, like, okay, everyone has to go home. How do I do that? How do I manage to that? And how fast can we get people back in the office? A conversation, a one-off conversation, and it was quickly shut down, was like, gosh, we need technology to make sure people are signed on and signed off at certain times. And immediately we said, absolutely not. That's not who we are as a brand. Let's again lean into the departments that are working remotely. So, what are they doing from measuring the work? How do you, as a leader, measure your team's work? From a sales team, they have quotas. That's really easy to manage. From an operations team in hotel industry, we have quality and we have revenue. Easy to manage. Remotely, you set those goals, you manage to those goals. That's easy. But then we started looking at, like, how do we set those goals for accounts payable? How do we set those goals for information technology? And our CIO was like, you know what? It's easy. I just set lines of code goals. And so then it became a competition, and so that's when the departments start thinking, like, wait a second, when we set clear goals, people want to achieve those goals. And we actually became stronger leaders because of that, because we were leaning further into our KPIs. We are getting departments that thought they were transactional to become more, strategic in what they're doing, more thoughtful. We've streamlined many processes where we kind of started thinking through, like, what, we kept asking the question, why? And, why are we doing that? Well, just because we've done things for 10, 15, 20 years doesn't mean we need to continue to do them. What is the purpose behind it? Basic leadership. But it was opening, leaders who had run very successful departments to start questioning, like, gosh, I need to do things differently. And the teams stepped up. Our employee base has thrived. And last year we had our best year ever. So, there is a silver lining in this where, we did bring in a career coach for the organization. So, which has definitely helped align our leadership team, started aligning kind of our alignment. And that was critical for us as well.
So in terms of these goals, were those, it sounds like you let the teams or the leaders of the teams identify what those goals are. Yeah. And then that could maybe give a guiding light for what types of personnel policies or, remote or hybrid work strategies could be appropriate. So you're more oriented to the goal than you are blanket policies. Correct. And you're allowing the goals to be differentiated on teams. Is that accurate?
It is accurate. And we started with, really defining the KPIs as an organization. And so through COVID, we changed out, a good portion of our leadership team. We got a new president. So it was the perfect storm. We did a major restructure during COVID. So, we took advantage of the situation. As bad as it was with COVID and everything changing, we said, okay, now's the time to rethink how we're running as an organization. Now's the time to, look at the players. Now's the time to, develop. So we quickly aligned the team. We re-engineered our vision statement, quickly aligned around that. And then that empowered each of the leaders to then really work with their departments with some guiding principles.
So I'm interested in the leadership development part of this, yep. the growth and yep. the learning that came along, because you made some explicit decisions and investments yes. specifically around leadership development and training. And my understanding is your job title also changed in as part of this. So let me read that again. You're the Vice President of Quality, Training, and Development.
Yeah.
Which is pretty broad. Yep. Why that, and how have you grown as a leader, and what kind of resources did your leadership team invest in to be able to take advantage of the opportunities to become more adaptive?
Yeah. So yes, I absolutely took advantage of the opportunities, during the restructure. I was the director of training prior, and through COVID, we did a mass furlough. And so through that, I picked up quality. So for several months, I ran training and quality. And then through further attrition of leadership, I picked up development. And so one thing our president, George Lindbergh, and I quickly identified was, gosh, we've got a mix of some tenured leadership and a group of leadership that's come up through the ranks and is now in senior leadership roles within the organization. So so with development, we said, okay, we've got to help develop the leadership team. So we brought in Maureen Metcalf, who's part of the series, to work with us in innovative leadership. We'd gone out, we'd vetted a bunch of different organizations. We liked the approach. And we talked earlier about, experimenting, Maureen consistently, talks about Einstein and the mind of the scientist and being willing to experiment. And that's what we needed to do. And because we had so many tenured people who had moved up into leadership roles, we really need to reinforce the question, why? Why are we doing things? What do we want to change? And give people the ability and confidence that they can try different things and it's okay to fail, and create that safety net that's okay to fail. So we evolved. So we worked with the senior leadership team, and then we went to all the vice presidents, and we put them through the leadership development series as well. So we've did, very focused with Maureen for the C-suite. We've gone through the entire vice president level with leadership training, and now we're actually working through our director level with leadership training. So it's an evolution. It's taken some time.
So a couple of points I want to highlight related to me having just gone through my classwork and a PhD in strategic leadership studies with a org science concentration, which is all about change. And some of it is about leadership development or leader development, which is its own important distinction that I want to highlight here for a second. One is that leader development and leadership development could be considered to be very different things.
Mm-hmm.
Where leader development is how does an individual develop themselves? And that's when you're defining leader as an individual in a leader role in an organization. If you think of leadership not as an individual, but as what is in place in an organization or team that allows it to meet its goals effectively, all of a sudden now you're thinking about leadership being processes, norms, policies, climate, all of those sorts of things. And that requires a different approach than training individual leaders, mm-hmm. because you're going to need shared language. You're going to need shared ideas. You're going to need a culture in the leadership team or across the organization that embraces the type of thing you're talking about. So if you're an individual leader or a manager in an organization and you're saying, I just need this training, that could be true. And if you are a CEO and you're thinking about how to develop a staff member or high potential people into leader roles, providing them leader development opportunities is critical. But if you're talking about organizational change, you're really talking about needing shared experiences mm-hmm. amongst everybody that is part of those leadership processes. Does that resonate with the approach you took?
Yeah. So, I mean, I love listening to that. That was great. Because it is true. As an organization, we looked at our leadership. What does that look like? Who are we? It goes to the vision, right? The leadership piece, like who are we as an organization? What is that shared language? What is, what culture do we want to have and build to? And then how do we help the leaders, plug their interest into that? So, through innovative leadership training, it's individuals going on that journey, of what's important to them and how they plug into where we're going as an organization. And we also know, gosh, doing this, some people may unplug and say, this isn't right for me. And that's okay. People are like, oh my gosh, you're gonna cause turnover. You're saying that's turnover. Well, you know what? If somebody's not aligned with the direction we're going as a company and wants to stay in their specific lane and how they've done things, and it doesn't fit where we're going as an organization, as a leadership team, it's probably the right move. And mm-hmm. it's going to make the organization stronger. So we can get the right person in. That's, we want diversity, we want different opinions, but there's an overarching, this is who we are as an organization. And we want people to experiment. We want people to speak up. And if you're a leader who's like, I'm going to tell you to do X, Y, and Z, and that's what you have to do, and don't think on your own, just to get the work done. That's not what we want as an organization. So.
Yeah, let me make another distinction and see where you take it. In your title, Vice President of Quality Training and Development, I'm going to hone in on training and development, because that's frequent. We hear those two words together, and it's not always clear what the distinction is. And
very different.
Well, how would you frame the difference?
So the way we look at it is training is very specific. It's more tactical. It is, how do you do your job? So, our training department focuses heavily on the properties. I mean, that's the core customer. So hey, how do we train people to check a guest in? How do we train people to clean a room? How do we train the managers to effectively manage the property? How do we train each department, whether it's our IT help desk, to answer the calls that are coming in? Very specific. Development is going into that leader training, like who the individual is, how do we hone their skills, how do we broaden their thought process so they can see a larger picture, old school term, but business acumen. Like how do they build on their business acumen and understand a strategic direction, and come up with ideas that are going to move the business forward. So really leaning into their thought process and their skill sets versus tactical.
So I could see that being framed as a fuzzy type of thing, leader development. It's not a hard skill that you're teaching. It's maybe personal growth. Shouldn't people be doing that on their own time? How does an organization like yours rationalize the return on investment into leader development or leadership team development processes that aren't about tactical things, but are about, values, alignment, negotiating different perspectives, maybe even within your diversity, equity, inclusion types of goals? What type of rationalization is there to invest lots of time and energy and money into something as fuzzy as growing as a leader or a leadership team?
So it's a good question. I don't think you cannot, develop, not develop those skills and help people develop, because if a true leader is going to constantly challenging themselves and want to do more, they want to leave a legacy, and what are we leaving for the next generation? What are we, what are we doing? How are we setting the organization up? Not this year, but 10 years from now, what's that going to look like? We're thinking through that. And if we don't invest in our people to start thinking long-term, if we don't start investing in people to plug in their passions into what we're doing as an organization, then we become very much a hotel company that rents rooms versus a hotel company that's developing people. We have social responsibility. We're out there. We are, highly involved with human trafficking prevention education. We just, signed a commitment on refugee employment over the next 3 years. What are we doing, as an organization? Because these are passions that we're bringing to work that help people become more engaged in what they're doing. There is more a purpose. Not that running a great clean room isn't purpose, but what is the legacy of of delivering a great clean room versus the legacy of working for an organization that employed X percent veterans, X percent refugees, who was a leader in women empowerment and women leadership roles, and was at the forefront of women hotel owners. That bringing those passions in and understanding what individuals' passions are, so we can incorporate them into the organization. That
sounds like
excitement.
It sounds like you were effective in establishing some psychological safety for people to bring ideas, because I imagine that the initiatives that you were just talking about, I imagine they didn't all come only from the leadership team. Did some of those bubble up from throughout the organization, and somebody had the courage or the ability to take a risk and kind of suggest something that could have been in a different environment shut down or seen as a distraction or off mission?
Yeah, absolutely. One thing I have loved about Red Roof since I joined in 2015 is they have created a safe space. Like it's been a piece of our culture in certain silos. We have just broadened that across the organization. So, and we're working. Are we to bright yet? No. I mean, we're still working through it, but we are, continuing to evolve, continuing to ask for people's input, people's, our team members' ideas. We literally in June had our first time ever all in person office meeting. Like we'd done office meetings before, but the remote employees were never included. So we just did, our first all office, everybody flew in, met, and we spent a whole afternoon just going through our vision, doing breakouts, like, what do we need to do? What do you want to do to bring our vision to life? And getting those ideas and bubbling those ideas up, and then sitting, as a leadership team, like, okay, what are we doing? What can we do? And adding those to our strategic plan over the coming years. But it is engaging everybody.
That's great. I'm going to try and make a few connections to some of the other speakers in the series, because it resonates a lot with different parts of what you're saying here. Number one is the same trainer, Maureen Metcalf, that you're talking about, is the first speaker in this series. And we are launching in partnership, JMU with her Innovative Leadership Institute, a training program, which I think is the same one that your team has gone through, that if you are interested as a leader individual to participate in it with other leaders doing leader development, sign up. And it's multiple months long. It gives you a chance to grow as a leader. It's designed for that. Listen to the interview. You'll see that she's really talking about you as a leader needing to be innovative and experimental the way you were talking about. So she's a speaker, and there's a program associated with that. Another speaker that we have in the series is Chris Nolan, writer and director of the movie It's VUCA. And that interview highlights what he calls the VUCA max line and being above and below the line. And I'm not going to repeat it all here, but I'll just say, starting from a place below the line would lead to an idea like, we need software to monitor people's attention when they're working from home. We need to be able to prove they're working. We need to monitor them. That would be an idea that comes from thinking below the line, as opposed to some of these other ideas that you've been enacting, which are above the line. Lastly, I'll also highlight a interview with the CEO of Applied Frameworks, Jason Tanner, who talks about agile project management and specifically Scrum, and this an actual process to be adaptive as a team. And it started out a lot with brainstorming, but also Dr. Gleb Sapersky talked about asynchronous brainstorming. And you're talking about this in-person meeting, bringing everybody together to brainstorm and be creative, but with a specific goal in mind. You've made the decision as a leadership team to have a vision statement, and then you're involving people in how to manifest that vision. And so you can be thoughtful about when and how you involve people, and still be strategic and purposeful, and still be adaptive, and still be moving forward in a specific direction. So if you haven't signed up for the speaker series, make sure you do that. But Steve, what would you take from that big summary and combination of connections there?
No, I think it's great. Obviously, we're kind of the case study, or the proof points, of the work Maureen's done, the work Chris has done. We use the VUCA video in our training. I mean, our directors just went through that, and we had a class talking about the VUCA training. We are taking our directors through innovative leadership, where it is about experimenting. It is about understanding who you are as a leader, what is important to you, and it's a lot of soul searching, and really understanding who you are, who you want to be, and then it's bringing that to life. And so, we're now a year into it, and we're seeing those changes. that are happening, from what we did with the executive team, now the vice presidents, and we're seeing the ripple effect through the organization, that people are more comfortable speaking up. People are coming up with their ideas, which is where we get the best ideas, and at our core, we believe that. And it's going out, it's soliciting, and it's providing time for people to be part of that. It's about managing time of, people managing their own time effectively. And really, when we're engaging our teams more, we're seeing productivity increase. We're seeing excitement increase. There was the mass resignation. Sure, we've had some resignations over the past couple of years, but knock on wood, we have not seen the level of resignations that other organizations have had. So, and I believe, this is just my belief, that it is because we are changing as an organization. That's a lot more empowering. That's creating more flexible work environments, work schedules, we're leaning into what people want to do and what people believe in, and cause, versus, how do I write training on how to make a bed? What is the bigger purpose, and getting people involved with the bigger purpose of the organization.
Mm-hmm. Well, last question I'll throw at you before shifting into our shameless plugs and listener thank you gift is, I've taught listening to teams and organizations for a long time. That's my personal professional interest. That's my side gig. And there's something to overcome when people commit to taking a listening class, and me talking about, hey, you should take a listening class. It seems like I'm handing them a bar of deodorant sometimes, right? It's not the right, it's not an easy sale, even though people know it's important to get somebody or an organization to commit to, hey, we should really learn to listen better, because it presumes something, that we're not listening as best as we could. And I'm thinking about that in the context of this leadership development of a big corporation that's multinational, corporate headquarters. And now here somebody comes in, or somebody on the team says, hey, we should really, learn to be better leaders individually and as a team. How do you get over some people maybe feeling like it's an attack, or presumes some sort of lack of their individual capacity or the team effectiveness at the point? Do you have to struggle with that at all?
We have not. So this has been incredibly embraced since we've brought it in. I will say, when we first announced, hey, we're bringing in a consultant, being Marine, there was okay, what does this mean? We've got a new president, we've got consultant coming in. Like there was a moment of anxiety, without a doubt. But the leadership team is still together. We've been evolving, and the work that we're doing, and the learnings we're having, and the growth we're experiencing as a team working together, others are seeing in the organization, so they want to be a part of it. They're like, wait a second, I thought I was a good leader, but things are different. So when they get tapped on their shoulder and said, hey, we want you to be in the next round of this, I'm good with that. I'm signing up. I don't care if it's an extra X number of hours a week, added to my schedule. I will figure it out, because gosh, I'm seeing things change in this organization, and I want to be part of it.
Let's talk about that tactic for a second. It sounds like multiple rounds. So you have cohorts effectively that are going through it sequentially to eventually get to some critical mass within the organization.
Correct. Yeah, and total top down, because and we had a lot of discussion about that. Like, do we start with the middle layer, so the next generation, and we said, how can we start with the middle when the next level up isn't fully engaged yet. You know, they're not, they haven't been through this. They haven't had some of these learnings. Yes, they have pieces of it, but they don't have the whole package. So let's get everybody top down. So then we become better coaches and better mentors as our direct reports are going through it, as you know, the rest of the organization, and we can help support that. And our conversations become exponentially more meaningful.
Yeah. That's great. I think that's really valuable for hopefully many people watching this. The lessons I'm taking away again is that not every leader, not all leadership teams have all the answers. If you can create a culture of experimentation, of safety, it allows you to take, you know, something that was previously maybe considered a risk, as you reframe that into let's give this a try, see what we learn. We have a number of interviews in this series that reaffirm that message and also have tactical tools and approaches to do this. This interview, what I get from Steve is really, you know, training and development has a role here, bringing in some outside folks like Maureen and others to help create space for that learning, and really starting from the top with the leadership team to embrace those values and those ways of working, create an example for others in the organization that, hey, we are taking this seriously. It's all part of this, and it's not easy. There's no silver bullet to making these changes or any change. So training and development has a role, and really appreciate Steve's time. We are going to shift into our shameless plugs. I will shamelessly plug two things. One is the partnership with Maureen Metcalf of the JMU and Innovative Leadership Institute, Innovative Leadership Program. You can sign up and participate in it yourself. The deadlines are in October of here in 2022, but if you follow the link after that, hopefully you'll see the next cohort and deadlines. You can sign up and participate in the exact process that Steve has been talking about. Secondly, we have another new program that's more training based. It's called Foundations of Project Management and Team Communication. And this is for people that aren't full-time project managers. They don't need the Project Management Institute designation. They don't need a Lean Six Sigma green belt, but they need to know and can benefit from, how do we put a flow chart together? How can we use a RACI chart? What does it mean to have a scope statement for a project? What does it mean to work through disagreements by leaning into coordinating our activities and roles and responsibilities a little bit more? That program is called Foundations of Project Management and Team Communication, and the first open enrollment cohort starts at the end of October. So with that, I will turn it over to Steve for his shameless plug and listener thank you gift.
All right. So obviously I work for Red Roof Hotels. We have 4 sub-brands out there. You know, we have our Red Collection, you know, from Manhattan to Virginia Beach. You know, these are hyper local hotels that we'd love you to stay at. We have our Red Roof Plus locations, our Red Roof Inns, as well as our hometown studios for if you need an extended stay option. So we'd love to have you stay with us. It is the business we're in. We're doing some very exciting work beyond just renting rooms, but within our communities. So we look to serve you as a guest and as somebody who is, you know, part of this series. We will offer you a 10% discount on any room you rent between now and March 31st of next year. So a nice long window. So
wow.
Yeah.
So it'd be March 31st, 2023.
Yes. Right. You know, so all you need is a discount code here. I'll throw it on the screen real quick. So everyone gets it up there. Maybe, maybe not. There we go. All right. So all you need is the VP Plus code 629439. And when you're making the reservation, please make it through redroof.com. Call our contact center at 1-800-RED-ROOF or use our mobile app, or you can always call Property Direct. But you know, a lot of us just like technology. It's easy to book online. So redroof.com. And then in the VP code field, just enter that 629439 number. So
that's great. I don't think it's shared. However,
I don't think it's shared.
If I will have all the information in the comments, if you don't figure out how to share it in the next 3 seconds.
I
And
forgot
if
to hit
you
the share button. I hit the
subscribe,
share button. It came up, and so it's all good. I got
okay,
that
great.
number.
All right, great. So it's in the recording. You can go back and watch it, but we'll also put it in the comments. And obviously, if you subscribe to the series through email, you'll get all that information.
Right.
Any other resources or things you might point people in the direction to as we close our conversation today?
I will plug innovative leadership. So I mean, it is a program that we have, enrolled in, we are investing in, and a year into it, we are seeing changes in our organization. We're seeing changes in how we operate. We're seeing alignment, and we're seeing the development and growth of our leaders really taking off, and it's really an exciting time for us. So
it sounds that way. It sounds like you saw a lot of opportunities. You also saw needs to develop and embrace that as an organization, and it seems to really be bearing out in many different ways. And really appreciate you taking the time to share your experience and suggestions to the people that are tuning into this interview.
Yep. Good luck with the series.
Thank
It's
you.
great.
We'll see you soon.
Okay, thanks.